Okay, so Olivia Wilde's directorial debut. I don't know if it is her directorial debut, and I don't care, so don't correct me in the comments. But anyway, the film that Olivia Wilde is directing, Don't Worry Darling, starring Harry Styles and Chris Pine, is drawing a lot of attention from the media. I made a video about this film last week because they said that the antagonist, the villain from the film, played by Chris Pine, is based on one of my heroes as a cis white male in his 30s, Jordan Peterson. How dare they base the villain on Jordan Peterson? Sort it out, Olivia. Jordan Peterson has helped so many young men. You're just going to wind up a bitter old, man-hating spinster. Anyway, though, in today's video, I want to focus on an interview that Harry Styles and Chris Pine gave to some Italian press. It was amazing. Harry Styles, slightly more amazing than Chris Pine. Such a deep thinker, so profound. Let's take a look.
Yeah, the thing I thought is that for centuries, men have been told that they were the providers. They have to take care of women and children, you know, take food home or money home.
Yeah, right. Fucking dinosaurs. Booga, booga, booga. Men don't have to provide. Thank God that Hollywood is trying to destroy the nuclear family. Not like the values we've had for hundreds of years have got us anywhere. We're all basically living in caves catching mammoths still, aren't we? Let's just burn it all to the fucking ground. Build back better.
Do you think that in this way, both your characters are victims, still victims of this pressure that we still have today?
Okay, so Harry's brain, what you need to do here is you need to focus on that little tag, the end bit. The bit at the end, that was the question. Do men still feel pressure in society to provide? Do they feel pressure to conform to societal gender norms for men? The answer, by the way, is fairly simple. Yes, they feel that pressure to some degree, and it can be good or bad depending on how much or how little of that pressure they feel. Extremes are bad. Too much pressure can be bad. Too little pressure can also be bad. Extremely strict parenting, for example, can make children passive-aggressive and deceitful. Extremely lax parenting can turn a child into an antisocial bully. Extremes are bad, but no, Harry's got other ideas.
I mean, I think it's I think in the story it's hard to look at these men who've, you know, behaved in a certain way and say, you know, we should all feel really bad for them. But I think in society in general, I think, you know, it's probably more obvious now and probably more talked about now. Still not as much as it should be, but I think...
Oh, spit it out, Harry.
Obviously, like, mental health around, you know, for everyone, but, you know...
Question is about men. There's no quotas, right, Harry? It doesn't have to be 50-50. The question is about men. Don't worry, it's okay. You're allowed to talk about male mental health without mentioning, oh, women exist as well. Don't hit me, Olivia. Yeah. Beta!
The kind of suicide rates and stuff in males is higher, right?
Oh, God, the way he's just trying to justify everything he says. The interrogative intonation there. Like, higher? Right? Can I say that? Beta!
So I think there's obviously... I think there is a pressure that a lot of men feel about not having feelings or... opening up about feelings or feeling like they're supposed to have feelings or all of those kind of complexities around that stuff. I read The Will to Change by Bell Hooks, which I thought was like the best kind of explanation of like the history of kind of toxic masculinity and male rage and all of those things. Which
wow, the best explanation for toxic masculinity and male rage. Having read all of the relevant literature, all of the studies, Dr. Harold Styles, anthropologist, has decided that the will to change is the greatest explanation, the best explanation for male rage and toxic masculinity. Beta!
Oh, because I tell you why.
Beta!
Those things, which I think, reading that after doing the film, I think there's, you know, a lot of kind of things that kind of correlate, for sure.
So do men feel the pressure to conform to societal gender norms? Well, I read a book about toxic masculinity and kind of, yep. Cheers, Harry.
Chris, what do you think about your character? Do you think that is also a victim in a way of this pressure?
No, I don't. I definitely don't think Frank is a victim at all. I think he's, probably a sociopath or definitely a sociopath. But more to your point, yeah, I think there's an issue when shoulds get involved. One should be X or one should be Y. A woman should be this. A man should be that. I think the constriction that puts on a human being who's so much more than their gender or sex is ridiculous and unnecessarily confining. And certainly I think it seems like the movement that we're getting to in our era is one to move outside of those should boundaries. I think, but what I've said before about it, and I think it's true, is that this idea that Frank brings up between chaos and structure, which he completely exploits to his own advantage, is a very, very it's a very specific argument that he's made, channeling a fear that we all have, and the fear is being alive. And when you're alive, being alive is naturally chaotic, and we as human beings have done everything we humanly can to make it look like there's structure everywhere. And unfortunately, if you just peer underneath it, it's actually just teeming chaos. So that, I think, is something that's worthwhile to look at, and is actually a benefit of what Frank talks about. The rest is a bunch of hogwash.
That was a much better answer than my answer.
Not at all. Not at all.
I like both answers.
No, 1,000 times no.
Okay, so Chris's answer to the question was a bit vague as well, but at least it made actual sense. He used real sentences and gave kind of semi-opinions on things. But again, they're big discussions. You can't really have a full discussion about these topics in a 5-minute interview for a magazine promoting your film, can you? So, fair enough. Here comes possibly the single most profound thing Harry has ever thought, said, or will do in his life. I'm going to skip through what Chris Pine says, right? The interviewer basically asks him if he thinks that this film, if Don't Worry Darling, is a feminist manifesto. He gives his answer. He says it's more about power in general, whatever. He doesn't want to use the word feminist because it's a bit of a loaded term. But then Harry's answer is, well, let's take a look.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I think the themes of the kind of like gender roles of the kind of time in which the film feels to be set, I think is a very kind of, it feels very like traditional, kind of misogynistic time.
Harry Styles is the manifestation. He is the result of decades of institutions trying to destroy our pride in history, teach us that everything that came before us was absolutely terrible and it got us nowhere and it's taken us backwards, and that this society has to be better and that we are better and that we're more intelligent than our parents and our grandparents. Instead of being taught the reality, to my mind, which is that we're standing on the shoulders of giants and we should appreciate those who came before us, we're taught that at best our ancestors were well-intentioned buffoons, backward hicks who couldn't possibly understand our modern progressive society. Kind of like, feels like, kind of like traditional and kind of like, I don't know, like misogynistic. And yet this generation feels morally and intellectually superior. Yet we haven't even been taught to write, think, and consequently and evidently fucking speak.
I think it's incredibly relevant today. Obviously everything that's happening with kind of women having their rights over their own bodies taken away. So it's kind of a...
Wonder what he thinks about masks and vaccines. I wonder... Oh, would you look at that? I can't believe it.
It's a scary point to kind of realize just how not kind of vintage that is, even if you're looking at all these vintage cars and vintage clothes and vintage architecture and stuff. A lot of the themes, I think, are incredibly relevant now. I think what's so amazing about the film is that it's not, I don't think the intention of the film is to be really entertaining, and I think it's a really entertaining film. I think it's
an entertaining film.
You know, my favorite thing about the movie is like it feels like a movie. It feels like a real, like, you know, go to the theater film movie that, you know, you kind of, the reason why you go to watch something on the big screen. I think if you can go away and think about, have something to think about afterwards, I think art, if it moves you, whether it upsets you or makes you feel happy or makes you feel powerful or makes you think, is what art's for. You know, I don't think you have to feel really comfortable through a film to think that it's a really great film. I think sometimes the best films are the ones that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Wow, so I guess Don't Worry Darling is a feminist manifesto, or it isn't. What we do know, the teasers we did get from Harry, is that it's a movie that's like a movie that makes you want to go to the theatre to see a movie, which is nice.